Good morning, everybody. It's Becca at So Darn Twisted with an incredibly croaky voice. I do apologise. I am starting a new series based on a conversation I had with a young lady who messaged me. We're in one of the Facebook groups together, and she was one of those who she describes herself as a serial lurker. She's dying to ask questions, but she doesn't want to look stupid. She saw that I was answering a lot of questions for people and decided to message me, which of course is absolutely fine. Totally welcome that, no problem. And she said to me that she wanted to start junk journaling, and she's been watching everybody's stuff, you know, for a month or so now. And she said that she wanted to try to strike a balance. Another reason that she messaged me was because she likes the fact that although I do use junk in my junk journals, I also come up with something that looks kind of like an art journal as well. Anyway, long story short, it prompted me to think, why don't I do a video series about the different types of junk that you can use in your junk journals when you're new and you don't really know, because I know when I started about 7 months ago now that I had no idea what kind of things, you know, were junk to put in junk journals and how to put them in your journals. Excuse me. So I thought, well, if I do a basic sort of rundown of things, it might be helpful to some other beginners out there who want to make things that look nice and make it look kind of art journal-y, sort of, you know, an art/junk journal. So here we are. There you go. There's the backstory. So I thought, well, I'm going to start with the thing that I started with, because when I very first started looking at tutorials, I was looking a lot for book page tutorials because I did have some old books that were, you know, way past the best. I prefer to use books that I can get hold of, friends, family, charity shops, wherever you can find them. Books that are already, you know, sort of non-saleable. Nobody's going to put this on their shelf and collect it, you know. So that's kind of what you're looking for. If they're all stained and gross, you know, well, that's fine too. When you're using paperbacks, you might find that you have to be a bit careful tearing them because of this strip of glue. Just be a bit careful if you do want to keep the pages a little bit neat. Just give them a good push down the side there. So what we'll do is we will go ahead and I will show you a couple of things that you can use book pages to do, you know, to use them for in your junk journals. I will get there, I promise. God, any of you guys who've been here a while, you know I'm absolutely awful at getting my words right. I do apologise, it's out of my control. So let's go ahead, pull out a handful of pages, and then we'll get rocking and rolling. So when I'm breaking down a book to use for journaling, I tend to have a quick flick through and just pull out, separate some of the types of pages. Yes, I know, bear with me, types of pages, but yeah, there are types of pages. So we have the ones that are sort of, you know, proper full double-sided print on both sides, brilliant. Then we have the ones that have nothing really on them. You might have just, you know, a little bit like that up there. Oh, that one's in the wrong section. So those I would use to put onto the back of journaling cards, you know, as journaling space. I might draw lines on them to make them into, you know, like yeah, to make lined paper. See, words. So yeah, I would put those on the back of journaling cards. So they're absolutely perfect, you know, the back of playing cards or anything basically that you want to make a journal card out of. That's what I use these sheets for primarily. Then you've got the ones that have got a chunk of stuff on one side and nothing on the other side, or a lot on the other side. Excuse me, because quite often if it's got you know, sort of, and then you go to fold it around and you end up with it just looking weird because you've got a completely empty bit, and you know, my own sensibilities, but I think I just prefer to keep that separate. And also you'll get things like index pages, reference pages, that kind of thing. All of those I put into this pile over here. Now this pile I will use for things like to go on the bottom of a masterboard. If you're not sure what a masterboard is, I did a tutorial last week, I think it was, so it's still relatively high in the videos list. It will be in my tutorials section playlist. So yeah, I will use things like this as the base. You know, if I'm using card to make the masterboard, if I'm using thin paper to make it, then I won't use these, or I will double them up to give them some strength, because otherwise it's very, very flimsy. So that's what I would personally do with those. So then that brings us to the most functional, which is the pages that are, at least for the most part, full both sides. Now, as with the majority of my beginner tutorials, I prefer to try to keep the supplies needed really minimal, down to the basic things that I covered really in my series of junk journal jargon explanation series, which again has its own playlist on the channel. So, you know, ink, something to apply your ink with. This is the most basic corner punch that you can get, really, that will just round off the corners slightly, so it just makes it look a bit, you know, a bit presentable. And some glue. This is Yoo-Hoo glue, which is available certainly in the UK in this form. You can get it everywhere. You find it really often in like the sort of bargain shops, pound shops, that kind of thing. It's about £1.50 for a tube of it, so it goes a long way, and it really works on pretty much most materials. And there is no glue that will work on all materials. That's a question I see asked a lot. What is the, you know, the glue that will work on everything? No, all glues are designed for specific purposes, but this really will glue paper, card, fabric, you know, that kind of thing. So it's a good all-round glue for junk journals. It's only if you get into specific other things that you find you may need a different glue for that. So okay, so we're going to start out really, really simple and make just a basic pocket. As I say, excuse me, this is purely for beginners, so I'm going to just clip out those top two corners there, and these two corners here. Now, if you don't like to have so much of a gap at the bottom, you can also just go ahead and trim that off, or if you don't want the page number there, you can, not all books have that, of course, but ordinarily I would use my paper trimmer, but it's not in here at the moment. But I'm getting more and more brave at cutting with scissors lately. I know, I'm doing so well, aren't I? 47 years old and only just realising I can actually use scissors. So basic pocket is literally this. Fold it up, get your ink pad, get your little bit of ink if you're using ink. Not everybody does. It does also depend on the page that you're using as to whether or not you even sort of need it on there. Some, like this one, really, it's not really doing a fat lot because it's already quite yellowed at the edges, but yeah, my sensibilities say just do it. I hate this step, but just do it. So we'll just tickle it a little bit, just to say that we did, just to go through the motions. So there you go. And I like to just give it a good wodge in the corners, because it just gives it that. If you look at any book page, you'll see that the corners are always darker, you know, than the length of the page. It kind of comes across more. Let me bring that in frame so you can actually see. It comes across more here. So here you've got sort of that width and that width, but then it branches around here. So to sort of replicate that, I always do tend to just give it a bit more weight in the corners, purely for the sake of yeah, authenticity. Yes, this is so authentic, isn't it? Okay, so now we're just gonna literally pop that on there, and literally you have made a pocket there. Now, if that's not the most simple thing in the world, I don't know what is. I mean, yeah, it's kind of boring, but when you're just starting out, you know, you think, oh, okay, I made a pocket. So yeah, like I say, I did say I was going to cover it from the very, very basics. So there we go. But you can do way more interesting things with book pages. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to trim down the bottoms of these pages. I actually decided I was going to take off all of the edge excess, you know, just, well, because apparently. I just didn't want the gaps really on this one. So another really quick and really effective pocket that you can make is, oh, let's just clip out those corners first. Sometimes you can like make your folds and glue and everything first. Other times you're better off sort of doing it in stages. So let's get some of this on here. Obviously, I'm sure you all know how to do this, so I'll be back in a sec. Right, so the first thing that we're going to do here is we are going to, that way around better because your ink is on that side, we're just going to fold that here. So it's just not quite, you don't want it to overlap, touching almost, but not overlapping. Okay. I know, we're not making a paper aeroplane, sorry guys. Okay, now this one we're going to fold up. Now how far you fold things like this are completely up to you, they're personal choice, so it's absolutely fine. No matter, you know, if you wanted it to be up here, that's fine. If you wanted it to be really, really shallow, that's fine. If you know what you're going to be putting in it, then that makes it a little bit easier. And then I'm going to get this, no, I'm going to get this, sorry, and I'm going to fold that in half so that my two pieces are even there. That edge is not as important as this part, and you'll see why in a couple of minutes. So, and I'm going to fold it back in on itself. Okay, so we're going to just cut down that center line of this part. Oh my life, I'm just chucking everything everywhere. I know, standard. Yes, Becca, don't you always though? Yes, yes I do. Alright, so we'll just get that bit on there. Same on this side. I'm not going to go through, you know, sort of 101 different pockets you can make, but really just some simple but effective things. So I wanted to start out with literally the very, very base level, just to show that you can, because you can make up a batch of those really simple pockets and then just decorate them with whatever you want and then just keep them to one side. You know, you can put stickers on them, you can put dried flowers on them, sentiments, whatever you want really. You know, although it is a basic pocket in and of itself, but if you decorate that, you know, you can put lace across it. There's just so much you can do with a simple book page pocket. It's ridiculous. So then I'm going to take the top of this one, and again you just need a little bit of glue, don't drown it, doesn't need it. Pop that in there. Same on this one. Pop that in there. Down we go. Excellent. Right, that is almost finished. So I'm just going to come down the inside edge because that was the back piece that didn't have any ink on it yet, and there's no point inking the bits that are going to be folded in, so it's best just to see what you're left with and ink that. And then I fold it that way, ink down the middle. There we go. Now, just pulled that off with the ink pad, ink dauber. It's very clever of you, Becca, well done. 10 out of 10 for stupidity. Right, so that doesn't look like a fat lot on its own, I know, but if we take, this is like my tutorial journal of sorts that I have done absolutely nothing with the covers or anything of in ages. Yeah, bit rubbish. Okay, so you can take something like that and you can glue it between your pages so it will open and close with your pages, and you have got tuck spots and pockets. And it's really, really simple. Again, like I say, you can embellish it however you want. You know, you don't I mean, you can leave it really, really simple like that, but you know, that's a couple of minutes to make that. And again, you can batch make them, decorate them, you know, or just batch make them, leave them to one side and then decorate them to go in the particular journal that you're doing. So that works really well too. Quick and easy ladder pocket. Okay, so we have our main page. Obviously you can make any of this wider just by gluing 2 sheets together. So if you need a bigger piece, you can just glue them down the center seam and that'll be fine. You can just use glue stick to do that, it should hold it fine, but I'm just going to stick to what I have for the sake of speed and just getting through a few things with you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to figure out what depth I want my pockets to be. So let's say about there. Okay, so that's fine. Just give that a little nick so I know roughly where. Get it straight, fold it over, give it a cut, and ordinarily, as I say, I would probably use a paper trimmer to make sure that I'm getting them nice and even, you know, but yeah, today is not about that. Right, so I'm gonna have one there, one there, so I want one more at the same size as that one. Okay, now as before, you're going to ink them before you glue them. However, for a relatively wide, I like to take my bigger circle punch. I think this is the 1 inch, oh 2 inch, sorry, this is a 2 inch punch. I don't know why I thought it was 1. And go the right way, Becca, it helps. And I just kind of get it roughly so it's in the middle and just take out the tip of it, kind of thing. But actually for this I'm going to do all 3 because it will go through all 3, and then I know that my notches are in the same place as one another, so it just makes it look that bit more nice and central. Okay, so we'll just take them out. So you just get like a really nice wider notch if you do that. Often I'll use the sort of rounded triangle notch punch or the smaller circle, but I kind of like this at the moment. I don't know, I like this. But anyway, yeah, go ahead, ink your corners. So we've got our edges all inked now, so we're going to go ahead and grab the glue. Now for something like this, start with your top pocket because you're going to be layering them over one another. Again, not a huge amount of glue because you don't want it spilling out all over the sides of the pockets. So use your first one in. Now if you want to be precise at this point, what you can do is you can kind of position that one roughly where it's going to be, obviously near the bottom. If you want to just make sure that everything's lined up relatively evenly, then you can do that and you know where you need to glue that one in. But you know, it's not essential. It depends on how tidy you want to be, and obviously I think that was kind of what Helen was asking me, was that, you know, to make it look more arty rather than just kind of rough, to make it, I don't know, look sort of neater, I suppose, is what she was kind of getting at, which, you know, grand. Oh, I forgot I glued that one earlier. So yeah, you know, it's there are 2 different things, I suppose, with junk journaling, is that some folk are, you know, like it to be sort of really scruffy and sort of, you know, shabby looking, not shabby chic but just shabby looking, which is, you know, fabulous. And I actually wish I could do that better, but much like Helen, I don't really have the that kind of eye for just taking lots of little bits, or I don't think I do anyway, taking lots of random things that don't kind of tie in and somehow making them work together. That's a skill in and of itself. So all I've done is I've just trimmed down, because I didn't use a paper trimmer, hand cut them, so obviously some of the edges weren't exactly perfectly lined up. But now you have a ladder pocket that you can, you know, go ahead and just put your things in. Just grabbed a quick tag just to, you know, but yeah, so you've got a nice layered pocket that you can just stick your things in and then glue that into your journal. A bit of that has actually come off, so you're going to have to excuse me for a second because I'm going to have to stick it down now that I've seen that. There we go. Yeah, you can tell I made those late at night, can't you? So yeah, you've got that. You obviously then decorate it, embellish it however you want to. If you wanted to put it in as a page flap opening, you can also do that by, let me see, trying to find a page that I can actually do it on. Okay, there we go. So yeah, if you wanted to have it so that it kind of opened up away from your page, you can just fold a strip of just plain, you know, you can use the plain book paper again for that, you know, just cut a strip that's, you know, sort of a centimetre wide, fold it in half down the middle, glue one side to this, glue one side to this, and it would be that simple. That would just flap open then. So you could do that quite easily. So that's that. Those three done and out the way. Okay, let's do one more of these and then I will call this one a day for you guys. All right, final one, which looks a little bit more complicated but isn't. The first thing to do is, it will work with any size book page. If you've already got a really big book page, sorry, you don't need to do this step. If you've got small paperback size pages, then if you want a decent size pocket, you really need to glue two together. So if you measure what the length of your page is, so that's like just over 14 and a half, so I want to make this about 14 and a half as well. So I'm going to just sort of put my ruler on the far edge, bring this over, I'll have to lift that a little bit, bring that over till it's about the same. So it's just sort of, one was just over 14.5, so I'm just going to nudge that over there a little bit, and then I'm going to glue down the edge here, and then I'm going to just pop that round and just throw some glue down here as well. It's easier if you just glue down that first edge, because then it won't be moving out of place while you're trying to put some glue down the bulk of it. Putting a little kind of tack down really does help with things like that, so it's not moving around. Right, so now you've got your square, what you're going to do is you're going to fold it in half diagonally. And it's, like I say, it's much easier than you might think. The only tricky bit you're going to have is that you need to fold this part over, but you need to kind of make sure that your lines as you fold are together, somewhat central, and somewhat straight. It doesn't have to be perfect, obviously, but if it's not quite straight, it might just give you a little bit of an issue when it comes to just the last bit, because I mean, literally it's almost done at this point. It's just a little last step. So glue up these parts. You don't need to worry about the top edge, just that edge. Push that down, and then you're going to take one of the sheets, and this is the reason why that bit, it's important to get it kind of straight, is because this sheet needs to fold along it. So, and then you can either cut that bit off, or you can just fold it round the bottom like that. But either way, however you do it, just throw a bit of glue at it along those two edges and just pop that down. Now you can absolutely ink all of these edges before you fold them. It depends on if you want them to be defined, or if you want them, you know, if you want the edges of these parts to kind of blend together, which is what I've done here. I've just let them blend, and then all I would do is just nip the edge of that, get the ink around these edges. If you struggle to ink along this edge here, if you just squeeze both sides, it'll just lift it away from the back for you, so that you can just get that, because I know some people, they struggle trying to get the, you know, get the ink on it like that. So if you're bothered about getting it on the back or, you know, anything like that, then just go along it and do that. And there you go, you have yourself another very cute little pocket. You could use a decorative corner punch in the top of this to make a design at the top, or a normal border punch around the whole edge there. You can obviously you could put some card inset into there and just leave the book edge on this part as like a border. You could do the same on this if you wanted to. You know, you could put a nice patterned paper across the front and in there, and the book page would just be your edges. So again, lots of options, which is the reason that I'm not actually decorating any of these as I go, is because they are just completely optional. There's so many different things you could do that I wouldn't be able to show you all of them, and they are all very, very basic, very simple. Anything that you can decorate, you know, within the junk journals, you can apply it to any thing, you know. So if you would normally put dried flowers on it, you can do that. If you would normally use pictures, you know, ephemera glued to it, you could do that. Scrapbook paper, you can do that. Little stickers, sentiments, etc., you can do that. Buttons, beads, you name it. So the possibilities are endless just from, you know, one little pocket and 2 sheets of book paper. So I hope that, as always, you've learned something, even if it is only just something very, very basic that maybe you didn't know about. But as I say, the whole series of these are going to be aimed at complete beginners who don't really know what to use in their junk journals, because the thing is, as Helen was telling me, and I'm in the same situation really, is that our chosen aesthetics, the thing that we are drawn to, our junk mail and stuff and magazines, they just don't really fit. So what do you do? What do you use if you don't have junk mail and magazines that tie in with what you want your journal to look like? Junk mail that I got, or that I get, sorry, there's no way it would fit into the sort of steampunk or vintage aesthetics that I prefer the most. None of it really applies. So I have to be a bit, I don't know, a bit resourceful. I have to try to find other things that are junk to try to use. So yeah, I hope that maybe that's helped if you're in a similar boat to myself and to Helen, where, you know, your average junk journal junk just doesn't work for you. As always, I'd love it if you found me and you decide to stick around and subscribe. I'm about, I think, 4 followers away from my 500 subscriber giveaway. So, you know, stick around. You could stand to win something really cool. And leave me a comment, because I love it when you guys tell me that it's been helpful, because the whole point of this and this channel is to help. So I really hope that you'd let me know if it has helped you. Happy crafting, my loves, and I will see you in the next episode.